Okay, so have you ever been watching a movie and thought, man, I wish this was a game I could play?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think most of us have probably wanted to, like, step into a movie and see what it'd be like to explore that world.
Yeah, and it's funny you should mention that because I was actually thinking about this the other day during a game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were playing in this like modern fantasy setting, and the adventure we were on, it took this turn that felt like something right out of a heist movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it had all the like classic tropes,
Mm.
the tension and the planning, and then of course there were the double crosses.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild, and it made the game so much fun. Like it totally
Wow.
transformed the whole thing in the best way possible.
You know, it's interesting because that's what's so cool about movies, right? They can give you all this great material for tabletop RPG campaigns, like in D&D, for example.
Right.
Movies have all this world building already done, and the themes are already there, and there's always dramatic conflict, and you can really adapt all that and reimagine it in so many different ways.
I think you're totally right. It's not about like recreating the movie exactly, but more about like finding the core of it.
Yeah.
Like what's the tone and what are the main themes? What are the conflicts that make it work?
Yeah.
And then you can try to put those ideas into a game where the players can actually make choices that matter.
That's such a good point. It's like you capture the feel of the movie, but you let the players have a real impact on what happens.
Exactly. Their choices and their actions, everything they do, it all shapes how the story unfolds.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a familiar story, but also totally unique at the same time.
Yeah, I like that.
So, okay, let's say we want to adapt a movie into a D&D campaign.
Hmm.
Where do we even start?
That's a good question.
I mean, it can feel kind of overwhelming, right? Because you're trying to take this visual story with a complex plot and translate it into something you can play at a table.
Yeah, for sure. It can be a challenge, but it's a fun challenge.
Okay, so what's step one?
Well, I think the first thing is you got to figure out what the main themes of the movie are. Like, what are the messages or the dilemmas or the struggles that are at the heart of the story? You know, once you've got a grip on those themes, then you can start thinking about how they might fit into a D&D setting.
So like if we were using a movie like Mad Max,
Yeah.
Fury Road, that's all about survival in this crazy wasteland. So maybe we make a D&D campaign where resources are scarce and different groups are fighting for power and the players are always having to make hard choices that push them to their limits.
Exactly. You got it. It's about finding those thematic connections and then using them to build something new.
Yeah. Cool. So what else should we be thinking about?
Well, another important thing is to design what I call modular adventure arcs.
Modular adventure.
Yeah,
arc.
it's like this. See, a movie has a fixed story, right?
Okay.
But D&D campaigns, they work best when the players have choices and things can go in unexpected directions.
Yeah, that makes sense. We don't want to force the players to follow a script. We want them to feel like their decisions actually change things, that they can go off the beaten path and still have a great time and a story that means something.
Right, exactly. So when we're designing these adventure arcs, we want to make them flexible. You know, we want to have different paths and different ways to solve problems, and we want the consequences of the players' choices to ripple outward and change the world around them.
So it's kind of like we're creating a web, and the players are the spiders.
Ooh, I like that.
They get to spin their own paths through this world that reacts to everything they do.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's about making the world feel alive and responsive to the players, so they really feel like they're a part of it.
That's awesome. Now, here's something I've been wondering about. How do we take movies that aren't fantasy and bring them into a D&D world? Like, what if we want to use Blade Runner, which is sci-fi, or Gladiator, which is historical? How do we make those work with elves and dwarves and magic?
Yeah, that's where the real creative fun comes in.
I bet.
We have to figure out how to mix all these different things together, right? To make a blend of genres and ideas that feels new but also familiar. So one way is to think about classic fantasy stuff like magic systems and mythical creatures and legendary artifacts, and then try to weave those into the movie's world in a way that feels natural.
So like in Blade Runner, maybe the replicants, those super advanced androids, have abilities that are like magic in D&D.
Right, or maybe those futuristic weapons they use, they're actually enchanted and have special powers.
I like that. And it's not just about the rules of the game, right? We have to capture the mood and the atmosphere of the movie too.
Exactly. So if we're doing Blade Runner, we need to bring in that neo-noir feel. You know, that sense of urban decay and flickering neon lights and a city full of mystery and paranoia.
Yeah. We could describe a dark alleyway as a sickly yellow streetlight casts long shadows across the rain-slicked cobblestones. The air is thick with the smell of ozone and stale ramen, and a low hum vibrates through the alley like the heartbeat of a sleeping machine.
Perfect. See, you're getting it. It's all about using our words to create a picture in the players' minds, to really immerse them in the world.
I love it. And we shouldn't forget about music and sound effects.
Oh yeah,
For sure.
they can really set the mood.
Absolutely. Like, imagine a tense scene in a Blade Runner campaign with that soundtrack playing in the background.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing.
Right. It adds to the whole experience. It's
Yeah.
about transporting the players into that world.
So we've covered some of the basics of adapting movies. Now let's talk about some specific genres and what kind of campaigns we could create.
Sounds good to me.
So let's start with a genre that already feels like D&D fantasy and mythology.
Yeah.
Think Lord of the Rings or Clash of the Titans. What kind of worlds could we make from those movies?
Oh man, those are great examples. They've got these massive landscapes and ancient prophecies and huge battles between good and evil.
Yeah.
Like in Lord of the Rings, there are all these factions fighting for power. You've got elves and dwarves and men, and then of course you've got the forces of darkness. Imagine a D&D campaign called The Realm of the Eternal Hero, where the players are right in the middle of all that. That's cool. So we could have like the Elven Alliance. They're trying to protect ancient knowledge. Maybe they're looking for a lost library full of powerful spells. And then the dwarven clans are defending their mountain home from invaders. Maybe they find an artifact that can change the world.
Yeah. And don't forget about the Men of the North. They want to expand their territory. Maybe they're trying to unite all the northern tribes under one leader. And then lurking in the shadows, you've got the forces of the Dark Lord plotting to destroy everything. Maybe they're trying to stop a sacred ritual that keeps the balance between light and darkness.
Wow. We could spend all day coming up with ideas from just Lord of the Rings.
I know, right? And that's just one movie. We could also do a campaign based on Greek mythology, using Clash of the Titans as inspiration.
Like the Trials of the Olympians.
Yeah, exactly. The players could go on quests for the Greek gods.
They could try to find lost artifacts like the Golden Fleece guarded by a dragon. Or they could have to appease Poseidon so he'll calm the seas for an important voyage.
Right, and they could even fight classic monsters like the Hydra, or answer the Sphinx's riddles.
Nice. So we've got fantasy and mythology covered.
Yeah.
But there's so many other genres we could explore, like sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, horror, action-adventure. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, each genre has its own unique challenges and opportunities when it comes to adapting it for D&D.
Exactly. Like those post-apocalyptic movies, Mad Max and Fallout. They're all about survival in a world that's been destroyed.
Yeah, they show us this grim future where resources are scarce and different groups are constantly fighting for control.
So we could make a campaign called The Ruins of the Old World, where the players have to survive in this dangerous wasteland.
Ooh, I like that.
We could have the Scavenger Guild, who are always looking for valuable tech to trade and sell.
Yeah. And then there are the technomancers. They want to find lost technology too, but they're more interested in its magical potential. Like they might uncover artifacts that are both powerful and dangerous.
And then we've got the survivalists, who are trying to protect what's left of nature. They're probably clashing with anyone who wants to exploit the land for resources.
And then there's the remnant militia. They're like the last bits of a government that collapsed, and they want to restore order, even if it means being oppressive.
And of course, you can't forget about the wasteland raiders.
Oh, right. The raid.
There's like these nomadic groups that prey on the weak. They're always raiding and pillaging, and you never know whose side they're really on.
That's awesome. So many great factions for the players to encounter.
Yeah, and we could even use a movie like Planet of the Apes for inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
How would you adapt that?
We could call it the Forbidden Zone. In this setting, civilization has crumbled and now intelligent animals rule the world. Humans are just trying to survive and get back what they've lost, but they're not the top dogs anymore.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it makes you think about who has power and how people adapt and what it even means to be civilized. Definitely. The players could get caught between different animal factions, or they might have to negotiate peace between rival tribes.
Maybe they even have to team up with some of these creatures to face a bigger threat.
And speaking of threats, let's not forget about horror and dark fantasy. You know, movies like Dracula and Castlevania.
Yeah, they give us so many ideas for campaigns with Gothic horror and a creepy atmosphere.
Right. Like imagine a campaign called The Cursed Bloodline.
Spooky.
Yeah. The players are in a world ruled by a powerful vampire. They could explore haunted places like Castle Ravenwood, filled with vampire thralls and cursed mirrors.
Or they could go to the shadowed moors, where there are wraiths and dangerous mists that can trick you.
Oh, yeah. And they could even explore the Whispering Catacombs, where they might fight skeletons and find ancient relics.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And what about psychological horror, like the kind you see in The Wicker Man or Midsommar?
Oh, yeah. Those are great. We could do a campaign called The Town That Watches.
Ooh, that sounds creepy.
I know, right? The players would come to the seemingly peaceful village, but it has dark secrets.
Like what?
They might see strange omens or meet people who are way too friendly. Or they might find symbols that hint at something terrible from the past.
So it's all about playing with what's real and what's not, and making the players feel like they can't trust anyone.
Exactly. We want to create that sense of paranoia where they're always on edge.
And then there are the action-adventure movies like Indiana Jones and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh yeah, those are perfect for fast-paced D&D campaigns with tons of action and excitement.
I'm thinking of a campaign called Lost City of the Sun God.
Okay, tell me more.
The players are on an expedition in the jungle trying to find the secrets of a lost civilization.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, they could face booby traps in the Serpent Temple, or explore the Pyramid of Lost Memories where time and illusions mess with their minds.
And what about Pirates of the Caribbean?
We could do a campaign called the Sky Pirates Gambit, where the players sail the skies on airships.
Say pirates, I love it.
Yeah, they could explore floating islands and fight rival pirates.
Awesome.
They could even navigate storms and board enemy ships and chart new courses through the sky to find treasure.
That sounds like an amazing adventure.
It does, right?
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that these movie-inspired campaigns are just starting points. You know, we can change them up and tweak them to fit the players and their style.
Absolutely. We can adjust how powerful things are, give the players more choices, add twists to the original story, and even create personal storylines for each character. It's all about making the campaign our own and mixing the familiar with the new.
It's cool how we can take ideas from so many places and make something totally new. We're not just stuck with one movie. We can combine things from different stories and genres, even from real history and mythology. It's like having this giant library of ideas just waiting for us.
Exactly. What makes D&D so cool is that it can be anything you want. It's not limited to one genre or one way of telling a story. We can mix fantasy and sci-fi and horror and historical stuff and anything else we can think of.
Right. And like we were saying, the trick is to find those connections that you wouldn't expect. Like, how can we combine things that seem totally different and make something new and surprising? It's like looking at something familiar in a whole new way.
It's true. It's like taking all these different ingredients like characters and settings and conflicts and themes and throwing them in a blender and seeing what comes out.
And you know what? Sometimes the weirdest combinations turn out to be the best. Like, who would have thought that mixing Alice in Wonderland with The Wire could make such a cool campaign setting?
I know, right? It's those unexpected mixes that really get the creative juices flowing.
It's not just about making a fun game, though.
What do you mean?
Well, adapting movies for D&D can also be a way to explore bigger ideas and challenge the way we think about things. It can even help us deal with our own feelings and experiences.
You're right. When we step into these fictional worlds and play as different characters, we can see things from a new perspective. We can think about tough moral choices, or face our fears, or even work through things that have happened to us in real life. It's like a safe space to explore those things.
Exactly. And that's what makes tabletop RPGs so special. It's entertainment and creativity and personal growth all mixed together.
I totally agree. It's a way of telling stories that makes you think and feel and imagine things in a way that nothing else can.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the big ideas. Now let's get down to the nuts and bolts. How can we take those epic movie moments and turn them into fun encounters for the game?
Well, one thing we can do is break down those big action scenes into smaller chunks. Like if there's a crazy chase scene in a movie like The Raid, we can turn that into a series of challenges and fights and obstacles that the players have to overcome.
So instead of trying to copy the fight exactly, we focus on what makes it exciting. The obstacles, the goals, the drama. And then we make encounters that capture that feeling, but also let the players make choices and be creative.
Exactly. We give them some structure, but also the freedom to do their own thing.
I've also found that using visual aids can really help.
Like what?
Like maps and miniatures. They can really help the players see what's happening and keep track of the action, especially when you're adapting movies with big environments or battles.
Absolutely. The more we can immerse the players, the better. And don't forget about good descriptions.
Oh, yeah.
Even if we're using maps and miniatures, we still need to use our words to bring the scene to life. You know? Describe the sights and sounds and smells. Make it real for them.
It's like we're painting a picture with our words.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the magic of tabletop RPGs. The dungeon master and the players working together to create something amazing.
I couldn't agree more. And like we've been talking about, using movies as inspiration can open up so many possibilities for our D&D campaigns. It's like we're tapping into this shared language of cinema and taking those stories that we already love and using them to make our own adventures.
And it's a way to challenge ourselves as dungeon masters, to try new things and experiment with different genres and find new ways to surprise our players.
Okay, so before we get too carried away, let's talk about some of the challenges that come with adapting movies for D&D.
Good point. It's not all sunshine and roses. There are some hurdles we need to be aware of.
Yeah, like one thing I've noticed is that it can be tricky to balance the tone of the movie with the rules and conventions of D&D. Some movies, especially action and horror movies, rely a lot on special effects that are hard to recreate at a table.
That's true. We can't just rely on CGI or stunt doubles to make those big moments. We have to be creative and use descriptions and mechanics and maybe even a little bit of acting to translate those cinematic moments into something the players can experience.
Another thing is managing player expectations. Some players might think they're going to play out the movie exactly, while others might want more freedom to explore the world.
Yeah, that's a big one. We need to be clear with the players from the beginning, How closely are we sticking to the movie? How much freedom do they have to change things? What kind of story are we trying to tell together?
And we have to be flexible too, because no matter how much we plan, things will go in unexpected directions.
Oh yeah, that's part of the fun.
The players will make choices we didn't see coming, and the story will take twists and turns, and the world will change in ways we never imagined.
That's the beauty of tabletop RPGs. It's a collaboration. It's unpredictable. The best campaigns are the ones that embrace the chaos and let the story unfold naturally.
So yeah, there are challenges.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth it. Adapting movies can bring so many fresh ideas to our games. And it's a way to connect to those stories we love and create truly memorable experiences for everyone.
I agree. And it's not just about adapting movies, it's about adapting stories. We're taking those narratives that have touched us and inspired us and made us think, and we're using them to build something new and meaningful.
And when we do that, we're not just playing a game, we're creating something together. It's storytelling and world building, and it can spark our imaginations in ways we never thought possible. There's so many stories out there, movies, books, video games, even history and mythologies. We have this huge well of ideas that we can use for our D&D games.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about D&D. It can be anything. We're not limited to just one genre or one way of telling a story. We can mix fantasy with sci-fi, horror, historical stuff, whatever we want.
Yeah, and like we've been talking about, it's all about finding those connections that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Like how can we take things that seem totally different and make something new and exciting? It's about looking at things in a new way.
It's like we're taking all these different ingredients and throwing them in a blender.
Yeah.
Characters and settings and conflicts and themes, and we're adding our own spices and flavors and seeing what happens.
And sometimes the weirdest combinations turn out to be the best. Who would have thought that mixing Alice in Wonderland with The Wire could make such a cool campaign?
Right, it's those unexpected mixes that really get the creative juices flowing.
But it's not just about having fun, right?
Yeah.
Adapting movies for D&D can also be a way to explore big ideas and challenge the way we think. It can even help us understand our own feelings and experiences.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like when we step into these fictional worlds and become different characters, we can see things from a new perspective. We can think about tough choices or face our fears or even work through stuff that's happened to us in real life.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a safe way to explore those things. And that's what's so special about tabletop RPGs. It's not just entertainment, it's also about creativity and personal growth.
I agree. It's like a way of telling stories that makes you think and feel and use your imagination in a way that nothing else can.
Well, I'm feeling pretty inspired after all this. I'm already getting ideas for my next campaign.
Me too. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to how we can use movies to create awesome D&D games.
Before we finish up, I want to give a shout out to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello for their great article about movie-inspired D&D campaigns. Their ideas were really helpful for this discussion.
Yeah, for sure. Their article is a must-read for any dungeon master who wants to add some cinematic flavor to their games.
And to everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What movie would you turn into a D&D campaign? Tell us in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah. Until next time, may your dice rolls be amazing and may your adventures be full of excitement and unforgettable moments.